Welcome to Casual Cafe. It's November 25th, 2012, and we just got together to review a few things that have happened over the past month since we did the last Casual Cafe. We've had a lot of learning going on, had a lot of activity going on, and I thought it would be a good time to brief everybody. And to do that, we have on the Skype line, the artificial telephone that brings us video, Tony Myers in the state of Pennsylvania. And he'll be joining us tonight and acting as the sounding board, asking some of the questions to which you might want to hear some of the answers. So let me cut around the room. I've got Lisa and Kevin back there. And I've got my dirty desk. But should we need to put anything under the desk cam there, we got that. And we got the Tony shot. Now you're on screen, Tony. And then we got this shot. So if we all want to be seen at once, this is I call this the Brady Bunch shot. Here's a story. No, okay. So we're going to start out this week with an email that we received.
Okay. You want to start with that?
We can start with that
Sure.
and just get that off the proverbial table.
This is an email from Andrew. Hey, Richard, I have a small suggestion to make regarding your opening monologue. The number one problem I keep running into with trying to get people to listen to Peace Revolution is the durations. People seem to freak out when they see that it is 3, 5, or 7 hours long. I recently went back to listen to your first 9/11 Sync podcast, and you had a great way of reminding people that it's not talk radio, it's a podcast. In parentheses, this should be really obvious. But a lot of folk are still in the mindset of being spoon-fed their media. I have attached an MP3 of this audio so you don't have to dig it up. It would be really great to remind people of this every now and again. I understand it should not need stating, as podcasting is no new thing. However, I personally remind people that they don't have to listen to it in one sitting. I personally ration my Peace Revolution podcast out so I don't consume it all at once and end up with intellectual indigestion, and so I can really take on board more of the content. Anywho, cheers, Andrew.
All right. I like that email. I also appreciated that he dug up that sound clip and attached it to the email so I didn't have to go search through my old podcast to find it. So it is something I think that needs to be put out there for people, especially when you're trying to pass things around. Obviously people might think it's intimidating. So you have to remind them. I leave a lot to be, inferred or, taken by people thinking for themselves. But in an attempt to get it to people who don't yet think for themselves, it would be appropriate to remind them that it's a podcast, that you're in control, that you drive, that you can pause it or fast forward it or rewind it or stop at any time. And it's by no means mandatory to listen to each and every minute of every podcast. But if you at least listen through the monologue, the opening monologue and the montages I put together for each episode, you can get an idea of what you might want to prioritize time to listen to later. So...
Well, and there's such comprehensive notes also for each episode that you could really look through and, see if it's something that you're interested in before you spend time. So it's, for someone who's new, they could just look at the notes and say, oh, that is something I want to spend some time listening to. And so I'll spend an hour or two each week listening or something like that.
I also think it's like a product of our society as well. Whereas we're just taught to take things, it's instant stimulation. We need to be stimulated all from sports podcasts, news podcasts, whatever style podcasts from the more mainstream side. You're never going to find something over an hour. So people are kind of already conditioned into the quick information. Here's your conclusions. No logic.
Yeah, everybody
else,
has news bites.
Right, and even even in the hour show,
yeah.
it's hard. Like the format that they give you in an hour show, they really have 20 minutes of content, and they show it to you before they show it to you, then they show it to you after they show it to you, then they show it to you after the commercial break, and it's just tedious, and they don't get much out there. So what I'm trying to do is purposely get people to elongate and expand their attention spans, not to necessarily prioritize 7 hours in a row to listen, because that's a lot to consume. Some people do it. Some people thrive on that. I kind of thrive on that. So I like to serve up media that I enjoy in its type of format. So people can take it apart and they can put it into, chapters, or they can cut it up into, different parts that are smaller, easier, or they can remix it or however. But for people who have the ability to push play and pause at any time, that serves one audience. And then people who want to just, drive 8 hours during their day, and let it play all day, that's cool too. So it's different strokes for different folks. And I just try to provide enough content that it's there, and you can take it or leave it. You can take a little bit of it, you can take all of it, you can go into the notes and get even more than I looked at. You can go further. But I'm saying this is kind of the minimum that I had to do to represent the idea or the research, without neglecting aspects purposefully. So,
well, and without leading with your conclusions, giving people your conclusions, you're
I don't
taking
have
them on the
conclusions
journey. Yeah, here's the journey that I took through all of these videos and audio and things like this, and it's like you're putting that together so that they can then take the journey themselves and come to their own conclusions.
I mean, the other thing to consider is, it's a really small operation. You're putting together and you're editing all of it. You're not only like filtering all this information, but then you're putting it all together and editing all of it. And then that's a lot of work. And we don't have like a full team just editing things and just like doing things in the background. So yes, ideally, I would say releasing it in parts, especially for today's audience, would be a more ideal situation, just because of the way people perceive information. Like it's instantly turn off, 7 hours turn off, not even pay attention, like not even push the start button, because they know then they're going to have to find where they last left off, and they don't want to have to go through that trouble. They like consume one quick thing and it's over, that's done, move on to the next. But we don't really have, it's an incredible amount of work, and you're trying to explain aspects to history that are pretty much occulted. They're hidden away, they're purposefully not told to us. So it takes a lot of unocculting. It takes a lot of time to explain all the myriad details that there are in these various historical periods, because really what we have to focus on is the tangible evidence first and foremost. And to represent a lot of this evidence it's interesting, because obviously much of it's been decontextualized, if I may borrow a word.
Well, and I try to make the episodes timeless, so they're not only useful to people now, but they're also useful to, because there's a myriad of ways that they can propagate in the future. People could put them on an iPod, put it in a safe deposit box, or time capsule. These things, I just look at it like this: it might be a struggle to download these files or play these files on the devices you have currently, but in the future, I trust that serving up a long audio file is not such a big challenge. And so we're always kind of pushing the envelope on what technology will let us do at any given time, from our modest, what do we call it in the film business, the ultra low budget angle of making films. Anything under $200,000 in the film world is...
Well, that's for SAG. That's for the Screen Actors Guild.
In the world of filmmaking, under $200,000 is ultra low budget. So we'll be making ultra low budget films for quite a bit, I think. So yeah, tonight Ustream is cooperating. We have full capability, and so far so good. Hopefully we get good audio out of this.
Ustream is cooperating after 8 reboots.
Yeah. Anyway, this may or may not be the last show you see filmed with webcams. We may do something different and just use Ustream to capture the desktop presentation aspect of it. But we'll see. We'll see how it works. Next on the list of topics that we would like to discuss tonight is a discussion of our recent trip to see John and Janet Gatto and to deliver supplies, both physical and mental supplies we dropped off. And we got an interesting little proof of life artifact. I have it right here.
I was wondering if you had that.
I do have that, and this is why we could use the desk cam, right?
So when we got there, Tony, when we got there, the door was open, so we came in, and as we popped around the corner, yeah, it was open. Well, I had called Janet, so she was expecting us.
That's good. That's smart.
John was out of bed, and he was sitting in a chair at the computer with Tanya by his side, and his left arm is in a sling, but he was typing with his right hand with one finger, and apparently.
Okay, so I didn't think of this till later, but what I wanted to say to him is, John, you're typing at 50% capacity, because at best he used to type with 2 fingers, right? He hunts and pecks that's how he types. That's the school of typing that he comes from. And so to see him sitting there with one finger, at first I was like, well, he's not using his whole hand. But then I thought, he never used his whole hand. That's how he types, one letter at a time right now. And so we saw him transcribing handwritten notes that he had handwritten himself into the computer, and he's got this cute little computer. Tony, you're familiar with it because we did look it up that time. But it's a touchscreen computer that they sell like in the catalog on the airplane for baby boomers, and it's very simplified. But he's doing entry into a Word document,
and then Tanya edits his work and goes back and makes sure that it's that she's like adding in words or what have you, just kind of editing it and
just making sure
it flows. But she said she has to do very little editing, so.
And so the page that I'm going to put under the document can right now.
Yeah, so he got all excited and he said he said, Tanya, print out this page, and I was like, what did he say? And she's like, he wants me to print you the chapter that he's working on. And so he printed a page and a half for us of this chapter he's working on, and he sent it home with us. And Kevin had said the other night when we got there and we saw him at the computer, it was great that he was working on his book, but you weren't really sure what to think of that. But after reading what he sent us home with, he was like, wow, this is really coherent. It's very lucid. He is just...
It brings tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
It really does, because at first I didn't know. Like when I saw him taking notes in bed, I mean, they're kind of disorganized notes, and he just kind of writes and writes and writes. He'll write over top of stuff if he runs out of paper and stuff like this. And so I was like, it's great that he's keeping his mind going and he's writing and doing these things, because that's habit. He's getting back to his habits, right? And that's the rebuilding and the mentality. When we did the presentation on his rehab, he has to be able to start to function again as he did. And so we saw this and we're like, well, that's a great start. And then when we got there the other day, and he's got all these notes, and he's typing, and he's pecking it in, and I'm like, I wonder if it's I wonder if it's cogent. I wonder if it's coherent. I wonder if it makes sense. Wonder where he's at juxtaposed to where he was, right? And we all read this page, and it brings tears to your eyes, because you're like, he's right there. He is right there. Like, he has not gone anywhere. He is right there, but he just has lost. He has diminished capacity to express himself, and he has diminished capacity to move himself around, but he has not had any diminished capacity in being able to organize his thoughts and to move one finger around to communicate them to everybody else. And I think it's a beautiful thing, and this page is kind of an artifact. I'll put it on the screen now. Education as a helix sport. As you see, it's well formatted. Now, this is his formatting, I believe. I don't know that Tanya hasn't touched this. This is his sentences. This is his capitalization, and it's not the only page. And I think he was writing it with the hopes of selling it to Vanity Fair as a published article. So
also, Tanya, I mean, he seems to have gained a little bit of weight and a little bit of muscle mass. Tanya said that when she gets him out of bed and she'll hold him up and he stands up a little bit on his own. She said she can kind of let go just a little bit, and he
can support his weight for longer and longer.
Able to support his weight,
seconds at a time, but still,
just a little bit. So
does it look like he's gained any weight?
It does look like he had gained some muscle mass or some body mass, and especially in his right arm. You could see that it wasn't
nearly as frail as it was,
right?
And it looks like
good.
He still has a way to go.
And we dropped him off like a 5-pound bucket of the protein powder,
One World Way,
and some other stuff. And I think as he continues to internalize that, he'll be able to get out and get the dentures, and he.
Hey, how far would you say?
There's some things
far away from actually being able to get into what do you call it, an ambulance?
I'd like to get him in
ambulance service.
Well, his birthday is on December 15th, and so I was trying to figure out, can we get that organized? Will it be too cold? Is he strong enough? Because there's no need in getting sick, leaving the house to get teeth.
Right.
On the other hand, he might not be able to recover past a certain point without his teeth. He did make a comment to me and to Kevin that he doesn't necessarily think Janet wants him to have his teeth right now. Like, there might be a reason this is going on. So,
yeah. There's that's.
However,
it's kind of amazing how well the human body will respond. The fact he's a little bit better and not even having one of the key constituents before all the diet stuff, just a healthy environment, which, it's kind of an impossibility to get, to make that sort of value change for both Janet and John. So, I don't know what to say about that one. That's
she did find an old set of dentures, and he was trying to wear them, but he's lost so much weight that they really don't fit properly. And she was really, I'm not sure if it's a money thing or what's going on, but we have the funds for him to get dentures. And so I told her this, I told him this. He was very excited about it.
We just want to have their permission. I can't go in there and take him out of there without Janet saying yes.
Of course. But the other thing to consider is the fact that he may still gain a little bit of weight. And so my question to the dentist this week is going to be, what is the appropriate time for him to get replacement dentures? And if he does gain significant weight, would the fit change, et cetera? Should we wait a little bit longer, or would it be okay for us to go ahead and do it now? So I have a list of questions for the dentist, and I'm going to make that phone call this week.
But it's good that we're at that point, because when we saw him in trips past, it wasn't, he just needed to focus on the basics. And the basics didn't involve chewed food. It didn't involve a bunch of things that aren't healthy for him.
Antioxidant diets.
Right?
Yeah,
so
it was. Yeah.
And Janet is still doing great with the diet for him. I mean, she's making bone broth every week for him, beef bone broth, chicken bone broth, etc. And she's still doing a lot of vegetables. And she has been Granny Smith apples. She's been grinding up. I guess he just can't get enough Granny Smiths lately. So she said she's been grinding up 5 or 6 a week, one a day or something for him to eat.
Yeah, as long as they limit the app.
Yeah, so even without his dentures, she's still feeding him really well.
So overall, it was much more organized, less discombobulated. I think it was the most organized we've seen, all that stuff.
And now Tanya has been there consistently over a period of several months, and I think that has helped also, having consistent support.
She's really good with him. She has a really good demeanor. We also took him a lap desk, some file folder holders. I took him a cup holder that he can put on his bed. These sort of things that I had made on a list from last time. So each time we go, we try to make several small significant improvements. And he was really psyched about the desk, because I guess his stuff gets lost all over the place.
It's a lap desk. It's a hard wooden top with a little indentation for a pen.
It's like an old-fashioned school desk.
So you can put things inside of it, and it has a couple compartments in there. So he was excited about that. I didn't know if he would want it, and Rich pulled it out and showed him, and he was like, "Yo, yeah, I'll be just fine."
Yeah.
So.
All right. So that was earlier this week. That was Tuesday afternoon, and that was our second meeting of the day in New York City. But that was the first one we thought we should talk about. We'll talk about the second meeting in New York maybe after we talk about the next project. So on my list, actually, it would be 2 projects away. So let's talk about the Shortcuts project.